2020, pandemia, lockdown, suspensión de filmagens, cortes de verbia. Sex não tem nem noção que milagre foi conceber um filme este ano, que vem a 2021. E nós sabemos WHEXT.
Olá, pessoal! Estamos de volta aqui, direto dos estúdios Quanta, transmissão ao vivo da CLAP.me. Vamos chamar aqui o nosso terceiro painel do dia, esse painel que eu tenho muito carinho por esses dois, e a Ká, que está aqui comigo. O próximo painel vai ser sobre o mercado internacional, como a pandemia afetou mercados de produção mais maduros, como Estados Unidos e Reino Unido. Aqui comigo eu tenho a produtora executiva da DOMO Produções, Karin Stuckenschmidt. Espero ter falado certo, Karin. Esse nome é difícil. And remotely we have two friends from sister associations from US and UK. We have Matt Miller, President and CEO at AICP. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Mariana. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Hope
Steve,
you're well.
Yes, we are. Hope you too.
Good.
And we have Steve Davies, Chief Executive at APA UK. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Mariana. Lovely to see you. Of course, we'd rather be in Brazil. Around London. Still good.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Oh, you two guys are here with us, but at this time it's going to be remotely. Thank you again to join us here. It's an honor to have you guys here at WHEXT.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Hi.
Hi, lovely
How
to
are
have
you?
you here. Thank you very much for joining us here. We are now 9 months into the pandemic, so we wanted to hear your experience and what you have to share with us in production after 9 months living this craziness that we have experienced.
Well, boy, is that for me or Steve, or would you rather?
You can
us
start.
both together?
Yeah, you can start, Matt. Then we'll do.
Okay. Well, obviously there are many things in the backdrop of what we're all experiencing personally and within our own communities. But from a business standpoint, obviously it's obviously interesting how this pandemic has swept across the world at a different rate. Here in the U.S., specifically in New York, where I am, we really felt the impact of it a little bit behind Europe and obviously Asia, and maybe a little bit before you did in South America. The real hit came in the second week of March, and like everywhere else, we were caught a little bit by surprise. We were watching it from afar and not really realizing it was coming our way. So from a business perspective, we went into what I'll call the ramp down mode and tried to figure out exactly how to put the brakes on an industry that really does roll. We're always constantly in the process of production, whether it's pre-production, you're in production, you're wrapping production, you're planning for future productions, you're out planning, selling, representing to agencies and marketers, and you're trying to plan for future jobs. And when you put the brakes on, I think we saw a few things that were pretty interesting. One was, how cooperative the agencies and the marketers would be in canceling things that were in the works that needed to be canceled either immediately or changed entirely in the way you approach them to finish them off. And then we had to start ramping back up. And the idea of thinking about when it was safe to start producing again and how we might do that. I know you had a session earlier on remote production, and I think it speaks a lot to the industry about figuring out the technologies that we could use in order to get back to work quicker than we might otherwise. And so, there are many things that we did here in the US to prepare for that and to get going as soon as we could, as marketers really did want to get out and speak to their audiences and put some sort of soothing messages out there. And at the beginning, some of them weren't very good, and they got better. And as we got more and more experience, they actually started to find a groove of creativity and became interesting again. And then by June, we were really opened up across the country and able to shoot live with certain parameters. And I think that's where we still are. We're still in this mode of working within the new parameters and the new safety measures and all the various aspects that we need to put out there in order to continue working and to be safe. And part of that safety and part of our protocol speaks directly to government. It speaks to government to say, let us continue working. We are not going to be problematic as a gathering of people, as you might look at the rest of how you're dealing with life in general. And we can do this. And I think we've proven that we can with the right safety measures. So we speak to them in that way. We have to speak to our employees and make them feel safe. And we also have to make marketers and agencies feel that we are in control and we can create these safe environments because they're worried about their own liability of things being done in their name. So
that was actually a question I had is,
sure.
do you feel that the creatives, the agents have supported with creative and new ideas that would fit into the protocols and the restrictions that we experienced in terms of not every board is possible to shoot in this scenario? Maybe
yeah,
Matt?
look, I think there's some adjustment. I think that more than ever, it's collaborative, that creatives are still coming up with things that just aren't possible, and you have to figure out how to do them. But I do think everybody, is putting that filter on there and thinking about what it is that is possible and how to carry it out to the best of what the creative idea is.
Right. I was reading an article you wrote, Steve, on LBB about Godfather 3. So I know you guys are experiencing the second wave, and how are you dealing? I mean, did you stop in the UK? Are you getting new restrictions now, or are you operating normally from what we have learned and with applying the protocols and continuing with live production? Or do you feel that it's stepping back and there is a chance that remote productions are going to come back?
We're operating normally within sort of new parameters, really. I mean, I think it's interesting to be here because the US, the UK, and Brazil have been amongst the three out of the 5 worst affected countries by COVID.
Exactly.
So there's a useful point of comparison there. Where we've got to, really, I suppose, is something of a triumph for production and for agencies and clients. Looking at some figures this year, ad spend in the UK is only down 4% on 2019, and TV ad spend is down 10%, which isn't, of course, great news in a normal year. But it shows that somehow we've got to a much better place than we expected in June, where that would have been an impossible target. And I think what's happened in the second lockdown is that clients could see that there were safe methods of shooting, which were guidelines and, most importantly, experience of doing productions. They'd seen that productions hadn't been cancelled. They'd seen that production companies could work around these things. And I always feel that production companies are given the opportunity to solve a problem, they'll do so. And so, as opposed to lockdown 1, where really there was very little work for about 3 months, where everyone got to grips with it and worked out what was safe, and of course didn't want to take risks for themselves, their staff, or ask other people to take risks, we've seen things carry on relatively as normal.
Right, right. I was reading today, Steve, that California is going back to stronger restrictions. How do you see what's coming your way? Because California and New York are really the big film centers. So do you feel that there is a chance that remote is going to start again?
I think that's a Matt question.
Matt,
really,
I'm sorry, Matt, yeah.
That's his country.
Yeah, sorry.
I'd love to hear Steve's opinion. Well, look, I think that we've been very, very smart. And I think, Steve hit it on the head. We are people full of ingenuity, and we're problem solvers, and we figure things out. In April, which was 2 months before California, as an example, since you brought up California, and Los Angeles specifically, was allowing live shooting at all, we were already writing our protocols for what a safe environment and a safe set looks like, both for production and post-production, what facilities look like, any environments where we're going to bring people together. And I think we've proven that that we can indeed carry out productions live in a safe manner by that type of planning. And again, as I had said before, some of our protocols are written specifically for safety measures as we learn more about the science, about mitigating the ability of the virus to spread in certain environments and all of that. And some of it is for perception. Some of it is for our crews to feel safe, for the government to feel safe enough to not curtail our activity and know that we're approaching it in a safe manner, and to make our clients and agencies feel safe that we can actually carry out and finish a production in a safe manner under their watch, because ultimately their name is also on these productions, and they don't want to see outbreaks and they don't want to see bad things happen in their name. So, are we going to see us going back to a full lockdown for the industry? I sure hope not, and we haven't had any indication that that's going to be the case, even as we've seen spikes and surges around the United States in various places. But, specifically, you mentioned New York and Los Angeles, where there are, the two major production centers in New York, Atlanta being one as well. We've had every indication from government that that they understand our protocols, and as long as we stick to them and we do not demonstrate that there are outbreaks happening, that they're going to, exempt us from any of the lockdowns that they have to maybe deal with society in general. So, we're lucky. We just have to continue to be diligent. Right. And not get lax in the things that we've put in place and the measures that we know are important. And as long as everyone takes that seriously, I don't foresee us having to be pushed back into a remote world. That being said, we know what's now possible and what the technology is like, and it's going to be interesting to see how that becomes part of our everyday business as another tool in our toolbox.
Have you, we have experienced like tighter budgets related to the pandemic, which apparently the clients are now giving us less money and less time, where we have more expenses with the whole protocols that need to be enforced, and the time that consuming that this is to test everybody, to sanitize locations, to make sure everybody is safe. And we're seeing that we're getting less time in production. What is your experience in terms of budgets and schedules from client side and agency side?
Do you want me to answer that one? I'm sure Matt.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I think we can't complain about clients to start off with here, because in the UK, we have got this agreement with clients whereby they underwrite the risks of COVID postponement and cancellation. And that was a bold move on their part. And our part in return was to plan productions in such a way as to minimise risk and to mitigate risk. And that was really a key thing in getting productions going, because production companies couldn't have stood that risk themselves. Then it has the behaviour of clients. Well, they've gone through various stages. I think Matt alluded at the beginning, as we were all in this sort of chaotic new world, it took a while to get to grips with what could and couldn't be done and what should be done. And then eventually good creative has emerged. It's creative that takes into account the situation that we're in. And it's very difficult for brands to find the right tone of voice, but many of them have done that with their Christmas ads, which is the UK equivalent of Super Bowl advertising, I suppose. There's some really good stuff out there. So yeah, they've got to grips with all of that. And have the budgets gone down? Well, there's certainly been some squeezed budgets, but I think they're understanding largely about time. And I suppose all production companies were just keen to work. So there probably has been some downward pressure increased. And I think a concern would be, and I think people have said this in the past, when we've had recessions, for example, budgets go down, then they never go back up again. Right. So I think that would be a concern for production companies going forward.
Right. Have you seen any, here in Brazil, and I think in the UK and in the US as well, the insurance are not covering pandemic-related incidents, or so is there anything, do you see any movement in the industry, in the insurance industry, that they're starting to consider liability for COVID-related incidents, or anything that is moving ahead? Because we really need it.
I'll just be very quick if Matt wants to say, but largely no, because what happened was some of the insurers had insured Wimbledon and the Olympics, and they were cancelled, and they had to pay out tens or hundreds of millions of pounds, and done that. They're all running very fast from this market. Some of them closed their division, so it's not looking optimistic on that.
Okay.
Yeah, generally speaking, the insurers are afraid of things that have the likelihood of problems of risk. That's just a general piece. So when you look at the underwriting of the risks associated with bringing together large numbers of people and all the factors that go into that, whether it be, things that are within the control of the production or outside of the control, which is, access to locations and travel and various things that are outside the normal parameters of what we can't control or expect to be. The problem with the pandemic like this is it's full of the unexpected. And, with the unexpected comes very nervous insurance people. They don't like that. They like prediction. They like numbers. They like to understand the probability of there being in issues so that they can underwrite it appropriately, which is why they're running from it. So, again, it goes back to the fact that, knowing that there isn't insurance for specific items that are caused by COVID means that we just have to be more diligent, and we have to make sure that the things that we can control, we do control to the best of our ability.
So are the production companies, when you do a job, is the client responsible for any related COVID incident, like director at the last minute gets tested positive and the shoot needs to be postponed? Is this transferred over to the clients? And are you having any resistance in that term? Steve?
That's what I was alluding to in the UK. We have something called the tripartite agreement, which is an agreement between the agency association, the client association, and us. And in that agreement, the client underwrites all those costs.
Okay.
So if the director gets sick, they pay for a replacement. And what we found since March, since May, when production started coming back, is that actually no productions have been cancelled. And this, of course, is critical and good news. And we told production companies, really, which they would do anyway, but you've got to avoid cancellations at all costs, because what we found is that clients have been understanding about additional costs because the DOP's got sick or been in contact with somebody with COVID, and they've dealt with that and they've paid those costs. But we fear that if there was a huge cancellation where someone had paid out hundreds of thousands of pounds in the first 50 and got nothing for it, that's the sort of thing that clients understandably don't like. And that would ripple through the client community and be very damaging for confidence. So our absolute objective has been to work around that. And of course, the ingenuity of production people in dressing problems has meant that they've been able to do that.
And what's your experience, Matt?
We don't have a formalized agreement in that manner, but generally speaking, people are very cooperative and understanding. I do think that the planning and the timing is very important, and the clients being understanding about the safety measures and protocols we have in place is the key piece to that. But generally speaking, most clients are actually very concerned. We found that in prior times we have a new arrangement with the unions here in the U.S. about safety protocols as of just 2 days ago. But even before that, there were many clients that were, insisting on doing COVID testing on the entire crew and cast, and obviously paying for it. So they were pushing measures beyond what was required to make sure that safety was there, to make sure that things could move forward and not be canceled.
Right. Yeah, we have a protocol here. I mean, our protocol is we do test all crew and talent. So, but in case of an incident for you, Matt, is the production company then, let's say something happens to a crew member, is the production company responsible, or is this responsibility transferred to a client, or is that shared with the client?
Well, we have, there are different types of responsibilities. So I think as it relates to the actual production, generally speaking, the clients are understanding any sort of overages that deal with that with the production. When it comes to, the role of an employer, there's a Family First Act that's in place right now by the federal government that works as a backstop to costs associated with paid sick leave for individuals currently. So there's an aspect to dealing with the sick individuals and how they are handled from an employer's standpoint point of view. But from the standpoint of clients and production related expenses, generally speaking, they've been very cooperative and understanding and collaborative in understanding that these costs are related to the job.
Right. Yeah, because here for us, related to crew, it's really the production company is responsible, and the unions are making it very clear that if whoever is working for you is under your responsibility. And it's a burden. It's really hard on production companies, and you can't have an insurance, so it's something that scares us here. So I was wondering what your experience is there, but having a government support, we do not have that here. So there was discussions of creating a fund in case people get sick, that there is a fund created that you can support that person, and but nothing has been put in place yet. I was reading there are a lot of countries that have been advanced in creating COVID funds for the industry. Is there anything that you guys have been doing, like AICP? Are you working on something like that?
Well, again, there's been a lot of government support for small business.
Yeah, but it doesn't get to everybody, right? It's like
no, it doesn't.
I know.
But luckily, there's been quite a bit of, in the first wave of it, we've been expecting a second wave, but it seems that the politicians in Washington, D.C. have been busy with other things lately and have sort of forgotten about what was on their agenda. But hopefully we'll get back to it soon enough. But, we do have great expenses that do fall on the production and responsibilities as the employer. And as I sort of, touched on before, more recently in the last few days, a very complicated agreement with the four major unions in the U.S., the Directors Guild of America, the IATSE, and the Teamsters, which is divided on either coast, was reached with us kind of in the wake of the studios and the television producers reaching an agreement with them in September about protocols that are way more stringent than what has been in place up until now, and will be very expensive. And we're as I'm saying, this is just days old, so the ink is barely dry on this deal, and it doesn't go into effect until December 15th. But a lot of education is going to have to get out there to the marketers so they understand why these new expenses are coming, which are significant to abide by. But safety first. I think we have to always be thinking that way, and marketers have to understand what that's all about.
Did either of your associations do any kind of training or support for training production companies of how to deal with the sets, with shooting, with safety protocols or anything? Or is this just, I saw your protocols, I went through it, but was there any practical support done?
Yeah, we set up this COVID supervisor test online, which really is the test that people had read the guidelines, the health declaration, and they understood how and when to manage a set for COVID issues. And we had over 2,000 people take and pass that test. So that's been useful. But of course, the test is only part of the story. And what we've seen on productions is that a good COVID supervisor is someone who actively manages those things on set. There's nothing particularly complex about it. It doesn't require an understanding of the disease, but what it does is it requires somebody who will actually go around and make sure people are standing 2 meters apart. They'll make sure they're wearing their masks. And what we've seen on sets is, of course, it takes a particular type of personality to be able to say that to the electricians and get them to comply. And sometimes possibly somebody too junior or too timid or too lazy hasn't been able to fulfill that role satisfactorily. So that's something that we would talk to the members about. It's not sufficient just that they understand the COVID regulations and pass the test. You also need to assess them as you would any other crew member in terms of their general capabilities.
Yes.
Yeah, and here it's a little different. We the unions actually funded by the employers have set up training programs through various groups and entities that already exist that are open to union and non-union employees to get a level of training. But as Steve says, most of it's common sense. The real important thing is the diligence and people actually following very simple protocols. It's very simple to wear a mask. It's very simple to wash your hands. It's very simple to disinfect areas, and it's very simple to stay a certain distance apart. And by just following those measures and making sure that everyone takes all of that seriously and doesn't become too relaxed in the environment and stays alert to all of those protocols and those various basic measures, keeps everyone safe. And we know that the most important thing to actually stop the spread of this disease is those basic measures and being diligent about them. Right. And it's only when you let your guard down and you don't take any of those things seriously that you have problems. So Steve's right. You need, the term being used here in commercials is the COVID compliance manager, and that role is somebody that has to be in authority and has to be able to exhibit authority and has to be able to go up to a director and say, "You're not wearing your mask. Put your mask on."
Exactly.
And all the way through the line. So I think that is probably the most important thing that we can all remember.
Exactly. Yeah, we're doing also like 12-hour shoots. That's the maximum that we are allowing, because people get tired after that and then they relapse. So it has been something that has been helpful. But yeah, you need to have someone that has the authority. It's like if you put a junior person on, it's hard to confront a director who says, is there anything that you being more mature markets and like just, I think AICP has 350 companies part of the AICP. I don't know how many companies you have at APA, Steve, but is there anything that you think you can share with us here in Brazil that you experienced during these 10 months now that we're into the pandemic and into second wave and third wave? They talking about a third wave already?
I don't feel like we're out of the first one here. I think it just keeps rolling.
It just keeps rolling, yeah. I mean, yeah, the U.S. has been crazy. It's just different. With the politics, it just turned into a craziness.
I think, seeing a lot of what Steve's been doing, it sort of mirrors a lot of what we've been doing. And I think, from the beginning of this, the one thing that we've learned is communicating with our community on a regular basis and sharing the insights and experience that each other has gained throughout it has been invaluable. I mean, we started, our business started shutting down, as I had said, on March 13th. That was sort of like the date everyone pegs here in the US is when, everything really came to a halt. Within a week, we started using this medium that we're on right now, Zoom,
remote shooting,
with our members. And, we didn't know exactly what we'd get, but we invited the entire membership and we ended up having 680 people attend the meeting, which was a little bit tough because at the time I didn't know how to operate the mute button. Now I do. And we've been continuing with multiple meetings per week. We've now done 79 meetings with our membership as of yesterday and have had over 21,000 people attending these meetings. And, what we find is that not all of them are incredibly informative of anything specific. Some have very specific agendas and we want to make sure people understand things. Some have special guests and authorities and other people. But the most important thing is keeping everyone together and on the same page with the information that we're learning and the experience and making sure that they are in some way accountable to each other as a community. And creating that vehicle and that flow of information is what we've found to be the most important thing to keep advancing and keep making sure that everybody is up to date on the latest information and ability
sharing
to work
information.
safely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've had I suppose, a similar experience. I mean, if there's a lesson in going forward, I'm not saying it's a lesson that we can tell any other country, because I'm sure every other country, Brazil and everyone is at the same sort of stage, but it's building up experience and confidence by having guidelines, working according to those guidelines, and every successful shoot is a message to a client. Yes, I can do this, I can do it responsibly, and I can get the ad I want made. And as with the AICP, community has been an important part of that. The big Zoom calls have been a great community effort in getting us through the early stages in particular. Some of them have been about us conveying information, but also just the members helping each other. And I think that's really helped them both literally and in terms of their morale. So say, for example, right at the outset, when we were looking at no income for a period and still costs, we had a furloughing scheme in the UK. So we discussed how that would work. And also the other key element of costs was landlords and rents. And so we went through with the members some of the things they could do, and then members shared their own experience of their negotiations with their landlords. Some successful, some very successful, some less successful, but everybody learnt and got tips from those and went off with better information to apply themselves. That whole community effort was two benefits really. It was the real information,
right,
and the sense of community and caring that everybody gave. And I think everybody felt that, of course, they had to be concerned about their own company first, but they didn't want anybody else to struggle under this either. So if they could help them, they could.
Right. As you guys said, it's like we are problem solvers. So getting together and supporting each other. I think we're running out of time. They already told me here, like, we are already into the next session. I want to thank you very, very much for joining us here and for sharing your experiences. And we're going to get through this. It's, it's going to end eventually. Really nice to see you here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks to Mariana, and great to be part of WHEXT, a great event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye. Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll see
Have
you
a good
next
day.
year in Sao Paulo.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, right.
Okay.
Thanks.